Some of the most fascinating stories in the Hebrew scriptures are the ones that are also the most paradoxical. And this is one of them. It's the story of a woman from Jericho who, honestly, seems like the absolute last person you'd expect to be called a hero of faith. Her name is Rahab, and her story really challenges a lot of our assumptions. So, you have to ask, how does a woman in her position, a citizen of a city literally marked for destruction, transform into this pivotal figure who's celebrated through the ages? How does that even happen? Well, the answer is a journey of incredible risk, profound revelation, and ultimately, redemption. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in the book of Joshua, chapter 2. The Israelites are right on the verge of entering the promised land, and their first target is the big one, the fortified city of Jericho. So Joshua sends in 2 spies to scout the place out. The only problem is, these spies weren't exactly masters of stealth. The king of Jericho finds out they're there almost immediately, and the whole city goes on high alert. So now the spies are in a very, very tight spot, and they end up seeking refuge in the home of Rahab. Now, let's be really clear about who Rahab was, because the text doesn't pull any punches here. The Hebrew term that's used is the standard everyday word for a prostitute. This wasn't some kind of ceremonial role or a metaphor. It was her profession, and the Bible is very direct about it. And this is where the story just ignites. Rahab is immediately slammed with a life or death decision. Does she turn in these foreign agents and protect herself? Or does she risk absolutely everything to help them? Her choice is revealed not in her words, but in her immediate actions. I mean, just look at this sequence of events. She doesn't just give them a room, she actively protects them. When the king's men come knocking on her door, she has already hidden the spies on her roof. Then she looks those soldiers right in the eye and sends them on a complete wild goose chase, a direct lie to the highest authority in her city, and finally, she engineers their escape. Every single step here is a deliberate, high-stakes act of defiance. Now, this is crucial. Let's fast forward to the New Testament and see how this moment is framed. The book of Hebrews, in its famous Hall of Faith, highlights her actions. But notice the careful wording. It says her faith was shown because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. It praises her hospitality and her protection, framing that as the tangible proof of her faith. Of course, this brings up a massive ethical question, right? One that theologians have been debating for centuries. To save the lives of these spies, Rahab tells a bald-faced lie to her king's soldiers. So how do you reconcile an act of faith with an act of deception? Well, there are basically 3 main ways people have tried to figure this out. The first is the lesser of two evils view. Sure, lying isn't evil, but letting men be killed is a much greater evil. So she chose the lesser one. The second view argues for non-conflicting absolutes, which suggests God would have provided a third way that didn't involve sin at all, like maybe miraculously blinding the guards. Then there's the third option, famously pushed by Martin Luther, called sin boldly. You acknowledge the sin, you do what you have to do to protect life, and then you throw yourself on God's grace and ask for forgiveness. Yeah, no easy answer here. And this is a really crucial point. When the New Testament writers talk about Rahab both in Hebrews and in James, they focus on her actions, on receiving the messengers and sending them out safely. They're very, very careful not to explicitly praise or endorse the lie itself. They kind of leave the ethical complexity right there on the table while still celebrating the faith that drove her to act. But her story isn't just about what she did. In fact, you could argue the real climax of the story is found in her words. After she hides the men, she goes up to the roof and delivers what is truly one of the most profound confessions of faith in the entire Old Testament. She explains why she's doing all this. She tells the spies that the entire city, the entire land of Canaan, is just paralyzed with fear. Why? Because they've all heard the stories. They heard about how the Israelite God, Yahweh, parted the Red Sea. And get this, that was an event from 40 years earlier. And they also heard about the more recent victories over powerful Amorite kings. The reputation of Israel's God had long preceded them. And this leads to such a delicious irony. 40 years before this, the first group of Israelite spies came back saying, "The Canaanites are giants. We're like grasshoppers." Their fear caused them to wander in the wilderness for a whole generation. But now, Rahab gives us the inside scoop. The Canaanites were the ones who were terrified the whole time. She says their hearts had literally melted in fear. And then she delivers the knockout punch. This right here is the core of her confession. She says, "For the Lord your God, He is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath." This is so much more than just a simple declaration. It is a theological bombshell. To get how radical this was, you have to understand her culture. The main god of the Canaanites was Baal. He was the god of the storm, the rain, the fertility of the land. His domain was powerful, but it was limited. Rahab, in a single sentence, just sweeps that entire worldview aside. She declares that Yahweh isn't just a god of one thing. He is the God of everything, the heavens and the earth. What makes this so incredibly powerful is that her specific phrasing, "heavens above and on the earth beneath," isn't random. It directly echoes the language used in the 10 Commandments to describe the absolute uniqueness and total power of God. So here is this woman, a Canaanite prostitute, making a sophisticated theological declaration, rejecting the entire pantheon of her people and affirming the total sovereignty of the God of Israel. It's stunning. So, what becomes of this woman who took such an incredible risk with both her actions and her words? Well, her story doesn't end with the spy's escape. Her faith is vindicated in ways that are going to echo throughout history. So right away, her negotiation pays off. When Jericho falls, she and her entire family are saved because of that scarlet cord she hangs from her window. But they aren't just saved, they are brought into the community of Israel. She's fully incorporated into the nation. And her report gives the Israelite army the critical confidence they needed, confirming that God had indeed given them the land. But her legacy goes so much deeper than that. Her story becomes so central that it gets woven into the greatest story ever told. And it involves this number, 5. That's right. When the Gospel of Matthew opens up, it lists the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And in that revered lineage, Rahab, the Canaanite prostitute from Jericho, is one of only 5 women mentioned by name. And look at the company she keeps. Tamar, another Canaanite with a scandalous story. Ruth, a foreigner from Moab. Bathsheba, listed not by her own name but as the wife of Uriah, a Hittite, forever connecting her to a story of adultery and murder. And Mary, who conceived a child out of wedlock. 4 of the 5 were foreigners, and every single one of them had a socially complicated, difficult story. And this right here illustrates the ultimate takeaway. The inclusion of Rahab and these other women in the most important family tree in history is not an accident. It's a profound statement that God's plan of salvation has never been about exclusion. It has always been about bringing in the outsider, the unlikely, and the forgotten, proving that from the very beginning, it's not your pedigree that matters, it's your faith.